Good afternoon. There are two things that I want to show you on this video that you're going to look at. One is called data validation, and the other is how to purchase fixed assets at any point in time. Okay, so let's look at data validation first. Data validation is a very valuable tool because what it allows you to do is to make sure that the data that goes into your spreadsheet is the data that you want to go into your spreadsheet. All right, so we have a lot of data, we have a lot of variables here, and I want to show you how you can control the variables that go into your spreadsheet. So I'm going to take this variable here, this 0.7, which is the relationship of sales to cost of goods sold. 70% of sales are cost of goods sold. But this number can be anything. This number could be 60% or 50%. But if we want to control what it is, then we need to use, or we can use, data validation. So let's see how that happens. We put our cursor on the number that we want to use data validation on, and then if we go to the data tab and go to data validation section, you see the section that says data validation. You click on it and you'll have this tab that says settings. That's the tab that comes up, and you open the drop down window and you go to list. And now what you're going to do is you're going to make a list of the data that you want to appear in that window. So we want to have all of the options from, let's say, 0.5 to 1. So 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9 as a relationship of cost of goods sold to sales. So if we put them in, type in 0.5, separate by a comma, space, 0.6, separated by a comma, space, 0.7, separated by a comma, space, 0.8, separated by a comma, space, 0.9, separated by a comma, space, let's say 1.0. So these are the values that we want to have in that cost of goods sold relationship. So if we say OK, click OK. Now you notice there's a drop down window next to that 0.7, and click on that window. There's the list of the items that we decided go in there as data validation. So, and look, you click on 0.5, you see that the cost of goods sold has changed. Now I don't know if you saw that. Let's go back to where we were let's go through each of these. 0.5, click on 0.6, and then you see that the relationship of cost of goods sold to sales has changed. Click on 0.7, which is where it was before, and you see it changes again. So each time you put this in, it's like changing this, but it changes it in the manner that you want to have it changed. 0.7. Let's go to 1. Let's go to what happens if cost of goods sold and sales are the same. $150,000 sales, $150,000 cost of goods sold. And look at the loss that we take now, $423,091. So it's a powerful tool. It allows us to manage our data. Let's go back to 0.7, which is the number that we've been using, and then we're back to where we were. 3,066,000 in cash, 198,091. Data validation, very powerful. Okay. Second thing I want to show you is how to put fixed assets into our spreadsheet so that we can buy them at any point in time. There's no reason that we should have to buy fixed assets in month 1, or we should be able to buy fixed assets whenever we want to. So we're going to build a fixed asset purchase and sale table. Right? So just like we've done before, we set up this fixed assets with the title, and of course the first line is going to be, here you say it all together, beginning balance. What is it that makes fixed assets increase? Purchases. What is it that makes fixed assets go down? Sales. And the last line would be ending balance. Now we also need 2 other lines. Actually, we need three other rows, which we will not cover today, but we will put them in and we'll go over them in our next face-to-face meeting. Okay, so the 3 other lines are cash. This is the cash that you might receive for selling an asset. Percent, which we will talk about what the meaning of that is, and gain or loss, because if we sell assets, there are gains and losses. Okay, so that's what our table, that's how our table looks. We forgot to freeze the panes, so we should go do that. So view, freeze panes, freeze panes. Then go back to our table, go back to constructing our table. Okay. So what's going to happen now is that our purchases and our sales will be variables. We can purchase anything that we want whenever we want to. We can sell anything that we want whenever we want to. So our purchases and our sales will be variables. Right? So that means that these areas will be painted green. And let's go back, go to our paint, painted green. So these are our variables. These will be our variables. Okay. Now, beginning balance. Our beginning balance in month 1 is 0. We can tag this as the equal to the previous month, which is previous ending balance, which is day 1. We can say it's equal to that ending balance. And now we're going to buy fixed assets. And the fixed assets that we purchased before was $200,000 of fixed assets. So that's what we will purchase, $200,000. We have no sales at the moment. So our ending balance will be beginning balance plus purchases minus the ending balance, 200,000. Now we are only buying these fixed assets in the first month right now, so we can drag this over, drag our balance over. We don't want to drag the sale over, and then drag both of those over. Okay, so we have $200,000 in fixed assets. Now you can see that it does work in terms of additions. So if I purchase, let's say I purchased $100,000 in fixed assets in month 2, you can see the balance now goes to $300,000. We'll save that for a little bit later. Now we have our ending balance in fixed assets. And what happens to our ending balance? What do we do with our ending balance? It always goes into, you hear everybody say it all at once, balance sheet, right? So we go to the balance sheet, and there's our fixed assets now. Now, our fixed assets before were tied to what? Where were our fixed assets tied to? Fixed assets before were tied to this. They're no longer going to be tied to this. This will no longer be a variable. This still will be a payment through accounts payable, but it will no longer be a variable. So let's see how we're going to do this. So even though we have $200,000 here in fixed assets, it's connected to the wrong place. Again, if you take a look, if I hit F2, my F2 key, you can see that this is tied to this. This is where we had it tied to before. We don't want it tied to that anymore. We want it tied to the ending balance. So we'll say equal, and you scroll down, ending balance, you click on the ending balance, enter. Now this is tied to the ending balance in the table, and we want to drag this over. Okay, so that's what that looks like now. Now we need to make some arrangements. We need to rearrange some things. One of the things that we need to arrange is this. This is no longer a variable. This should be tied to the purchase. We've purchased fixed assets, and this number should come from the purchases, not a variable. So let's unpaint it. It's no longer going to be a variable. No fill. And we want to tie this now to purchases line. Okay. Then we want to drag that purchases line over so that whenever we purchase something, it will come to this row. Okay. And I think that's all of the adjustments that we need to make. Okay. So let's see now if this works. So let's say now I purchase $200,000 in fixed assets in month 2. Another $100,000 in fixed assets in month 2. So $100,000. And now I have $300,000 in fixed assets. How is this handled in our financial statements? Well, there's our financial statements, all balanced, and you see there's $300,000 in fixed assets there now. And there is a purchase of $300,000, another $100,000 rather, excuse me, in our accounts payable. So this does work. So let's say we purchased another $500,000 in fixed assets. 500,000. Now we have, oops, I put 50,000. 500,000. So now we have 800,000 in fixed assets. So let's look at the effect that that has on our financial statements. And there's $800,000 in fixed assets. Our financial statements are balanced. Notice our cash has gone down because we've spent money on these fixed assets. Now, is there any part of this that's not correct? Everything looks good. Everything looks good. Okay, the only problem now is the cash flow statements are not in balance. And the cash flow statements are not in balance because we don't have a line here for purchase of fixed assets. Okay, we do not have a line there for purchase of fixed assets. So this fixed asset, this purchase of fixed assets, again, it belongs there, but it's hooked to the wrong place. Right now, it's hooked to there, and that's not the place that it should be hooked to. Where should it be hooked to? Place where we purchased this from, which is the table. So this should be equal, I need to back this out, equal, it's going to be a negative amount, minus net purchase. And you notice that the cash flow statement is now the same, now correct. And now we want to drag this over. And now all of the financial statements are fine. Okay. Everybody see that? Cash flows are correct. Balance sheet is balanced. We have $800,000 in fixed assets. And everything is smooth and as silk. Everything works. Okay, there are no holes in our financial statements. You notice that depreciation has increased dramatically because now we have more fixed assets. That's the way this is supposed to work. And now we can purchase any amount of fixed assets that we like. Any amount. In our next class, our next face-to-face, we will get into sales, how we represent sales. Okay, sales of fixed assets. But for now, this is all I want you to do. So send me this completed financial statement. You can show that you have this working all right, because you'll have purchases of new fixed assets. So you should have $800,000 in fixed assets at the end of the day. I mean, these are variables, so you can take them out if you like. These are variables, but what I want you to send me will have this in it, so you can show me that it works. And also, I want to see data validation, that you have this. If I click on that, I want to be able to see this down arrow. Okay? Are there any questions about this? Please write. All right? Thank you so much, and good night.